I'm gonna send you to the closet. It's some polygon in the closet.
Honestly, I feel like some days you're fatter than others.
Me too.
Does your fat suit ever change?
My closet.
It does. You look fatter.
You don't look that fat now.
Okay, try eyes. You are very handsome and sexy.
Depends what I'm wearing.
Okay, you're done.
Okay, I was going I'm going to put kids to be announced.
And Aaron also needs the hours.
Lauren, can you
Yeah. Oh my God, baby.
Can you go in the middle of everything and she'll have to see us. Like she'll have to anybody post that poster picture? Wearing rollers.
Hi, baby.
Is Jews as I love
No, that's what I want them to do to the first.
Is it this one?
Okay.
Come on, Teddy, you gotta give it out.
I'm giving it up.
Give it out.
She's wearing a house dress and rollers.
We are all in the Merry Wives of Windsor. To my left is my good friend, Big Rick Belvin, sophomore at Mamaroneck High School. To my right, Eli Fuchsberg, a fellow senior in the play. You might want to say your part this year.
I am the host of the Garter Inn.
I play Master Ford, a jealous, rotten knave who's being tricked by many people in this show.
And I play Master Page, a friend of Master Ford, a very friendly family man.
And here's a parson, I believe.
That's right, my name is Sir Hugh. I'm a Scotsman, I'm a parson, I'm a friend to all, and I love my pippins and cheese. That's right, I love my pippins and cheese.
Spence, why don't you tell us why it's going to be a great show?
I believe I'll take that one there, Fatty. Well, we've gone over all our names and everything, and we're just wanting to say here that it's going to be an excellent show. Excellent show. There's lots of laughter, there's humour, there's tears. It's a tear-jerker. There's tears and pippins. It's tons of stuff to come. Shakespeare's a great man for writing these plays, and he's a great man and will live on in our hearts forever. Here's Mats. Come to the show. Come.
Another great reason that you should come to this play is that we have many accents going on. I believe we have a Scotsman here. Me, myself, I turn Indian for moments. We have a Frenchman. We have Brooklyn accent. We are very much a global play.
Very well versed in the language.
Very well versed in languages, trying to appeal to all audiences, children, men of all shapes and form, fat ones, little ones, big ones, skinny ones. And passing over to Eli now, my host of the Garter.
I'm the host of the Garter, and I do enjoy my beer too, but it doesn't make me drunk. I mean, you know, sometimes 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. But what was I talking about? So we're having this little show here, and if you guys come, we might be giving away free beers or not, but you're not going to know unless you come to the show. And who else is going to be there? Rick.
Okay, well, as you learned before, my name is Rick, and I like doing Shakespeare. I've done it, I did it in 8th grade, the scenes, and I also did it last year, and it's just a lot of fun to go and see your fellow classmates.
Why don't you say your famous line from this year's play, Rick? Go ahead and do it.
Which one? Fie, Master Ford. Are you not ashamed? What spirit, what devil of this kind suggests this imagination? I would not hire this temper for the wealth of Windsor cast. Anyway.
Please come to see William Shakespeare performed at the Emlyn Theatre starting Thursday the 4th of March and continuing to the following Sunday. We will all be performing The Merry Wives of Windsor, and another cast will be performing The Comedy of Errors. It promises to be a bunch of laughs and silly atmosphere, so I do urge you, come, or I might just chop off your head.
Well said, Ferry.
I dare say I am.
In 30 seasons of the Semi-Royal Shakespeare Company at the Emlyn, D. O'Brien has directed several versions of The Merry Wives of Windsor. Here, from 1998, are 2 side-by-side versions, one authentic-looking Elizabethan dress and one modern style. This year, The Merry Wives are retro, and the companion Comedy of Errors is pseudo-1700s. As always, there is ordered chaos leading up to the opening night, when, lo and behold, frogs turn into princes, and students become actors. Show dates for the performances are March 4, 5, 6, and 7. On Saturday, March 6 and Sunday, March 7, there are matinees. Bring the kids. Tickets are on sale now at the Emlyn box office.
The next version of Shalom Rav that we're going to sing is by a cantor named Jeff Klepper. Actually, he and Dan Freelander, who is the Executive Vice President of the Union of Reform Judaism, which is the umbrella organization of Reform Jews. So Jeff and Danny grew up as kids in the Reform movement. They went to Eisner Camp, which is one of our popular Reform Jewish camps in the Berkshires. And when they were about 16 or 17, they wrote, about a third of the music that is still used in our youth movements and at camps today. Really, he's a sweet, low-key, quirky kind of guy with a tremendous amount of talent. And many of the compositions that they wrote together or that Cantor Klepper has gone on to write really are just the most beloved melodies of the youth movements and even in our own synagogues. Again, a melody that is more accessible with a returning chorus. Again, a melody that we teach not only at summer camps or in the youth movement, but also to our younger kids in the junior choir. And so people grow up singing this song.
An interesting story about Jeff Klepper. When I first met him, I was interviewing him about Jewish music. And he said to me that when he was growing up, and even when he was a song leader, he didn't think that he could be a cantor because he knew his voice wasn't good enough. He was a folk singer and he had a light lyric voice, but he didn't think he could compare to the cantors of old. But it turns out that there are some congregations in America that want an operatic voice. You always have to be able to reach the community and also to get everybody to sing, because everyone likes to sing. But he's been a wonderful cantor and has had success for many, many years. And even though he had doubts at the beginning, his style of music and his style of composing has made him a wonderful cantor.
And a bit of a sort of a celebrity.
That's very true.
A minor celebrity. Shalom Rav Yisrael Tasim Le'olam. 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 Ki atah melech hador, lecho hashalom. Ki atah melech hador, achron hashalom. Shalom Rav Yisrael Tasim Le'olam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Tasim Le'olam. V'tov le'lecha levarech et amcha Yisrael b'chol עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. Shalom Rav Yisrael Tasim Le'olam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Tasim Le'olam. Tasim Le'olam. Tasim No need to applaud. We know you're enjoying. Very well. Very good.
This next Shalom Rav has a beautiful lyrical feel to it. It's by a composer named Charles Davidson, who's a cantor in Philadelphia, has been a cantor for certainly over 40 years, maybe 45. He might have just retired. And he's famous as a cantor and also for writing tons and tons of music, many, many commissions. His most famous piece actually is a version of I Never Saw Another Butterfly, which is for a chorus. and it won him many, many awards, and it's the poetry of the children from the Theresian concentration camp. But this is his beautiful version of Charles Davidson. Yes, I'm still tired this morning, of Shalom Rav, and one of his daughters actually is an opera singer, and he writes a lot of his music for her, and another daughter plays the flute, so that's why he puts flute parts in many of his. Versions of compositions is the feeling of freedom to add other instruments. Certainly in an Orthodox and even in a conservative setting, they tend not to use musical instruments on Friday night or Saturday morning, partially because of regulations about Shabbat, and actually having studied this, the worry is, on Shabbat in a traditional Jewish setting, you're not supposed to work, you're not supposed to use electricity, you're not supposed to drive, all those kinds of things. And God forbid the instrument should break. You shouldn't be tempted to call someone in to work and repair the instrument. It's one of the reasons that they prohibited using instruments. And another is, the first temple was destroyed in Jerusalem, and then the second temple was destroyed as well. And there's always a bit of Jewish feeling of mourning, of sadness that the temple no longer exists. And so even though the rabbis of old said you can't spend your entire life in mourning, weeping that the temple doesn't exist, there are still certain practices, as well as certain fast days throughout the year, that acknowledge that the world is not the way we want it to be, that there is that little bit of mourning and sadness. And so many synagogues don't use instrumental music, thinking that it's extremely joyful and often very beautiful, and that we want to sing and rejoice and celebrate Shabbat. We shouldn't be ever completely forgetting that there's that little bit of sadness that is part of our collective history. So those are two of the main reasons why instruments are not used in a conservative or an Orthodox setting, but Reform Judaism doesn't really feel that way. They feel comfortable in celebrating that we are alive and we're here as community, and since we are not strict observers of some of the time-bound regulations of Judaism, we feel comfortable using musical instruments. So we use guitar sometimes, we use flute, in addition to the keyboard or the organ as well. Hashkivi? Turn to page 8. Now, this prayer, Hashkivenu, is a prayer that is said all week long, though with certain add-ons for Shabbat, but it is a prayer that is said only at night. Traditional Jews pray as a community 3 times a day, in the morning, in the afternoon, and the evening as well. But Hashkivenu is a prayer, unlike others that are said all 3 times, that is only said at night. Let's read it in English and think about why that might be, and what the central message of this prayer is. Carol Shah, can we come?
Grant that we may lie down in peace, eternal God, and raise us up, O Sovereign, to life renewed. Spread over us the shelter of your peace. Guide us with your good counsel, and for your name's sake be our help. Shield us from hatred and flame. Keep us from war and famine and anguish. Subdue our inclination to evil. O God, our guardian and helper, our gracious and merciful sovereign, give us refuge in the shadow of your wings. O guard our coming and our going, that now and always we have life and peace. We praise you, O God, whose shelter of peace is spread over us, over all your people Israel, and over Jerusalem.
So why do we say this prayer at night?
Lie down.
What?
Lie down. Lie down.
Absolutely. We lie down. Let us lie down in peace and raise up, O sovereign, O God, to life renewed. You know, back in the Middle Ages and even before, there was this sense, not just in Judaism, but when you lay down to sleep, that your soul would leave your body and that it would come back in the morning. Those of you may remember that childhood prayer, now I lay me down to sleep, I pray the Lord my soul to keep, and I forget the next line because my mom never let us say it, but it's something about your soul leaving you and coming back, right? So here's that prayer, right? Please God, when I lay down, let me be peaceful, let me have a peaceful sleep, and let me wake up not only with my soul intact, but also renewed, refreshed, right? Brings us back to the Shamrit. And within this prayer, we have both hopes and requests of God that are communal in nature, right? Keep us from war, famine, anguish, things that as individuals we don't have a lot of control over. But yet at the same time, there's that tension because then it also, we ask God to subdue our inclination to evil. Right? So we're not just asking God to do things for us in the world, but also asking God to give us the strength to be better people. Right? We wake up the next morning, it's a new day. We are hopefully refreshed. We can be the best people that we want to be. So all chalked into this wonderful, beautiful prayer is a hope for peace, a hope for safety for ourselves physically, in the most basic health kind of ways, but also in a communal way. And also a challenge to ourselves to be the best people we can be, just as we're asking God to make the world a better place, right? We praise you whose shelter of peace is spread over us, over all people Israel, and over Jerusalem, and some people then add, and over the entire world. So there's this really, blanket feeling of there will come a time when peace exists. So it also connects to Shalom Rav, that general prayer for peace. So we're going to start with
a classical piece by Adolf Kachko. He was a very famous bass baritone cantor with a beautiful voice. He led services as a cantor at the synagogue that's in New York City at 100th and West End, I forget the name of it, for many, many years. Probably, yeah.
102nd.
Yes. And in the 1950s, he was probably the most famous composer of American cantorial music. This is very classical. It's meant to be with organ, unless it was in a conservative or Orthodox synagogue where they would do it without the organ. But in Reform, we certainly use it with organ, or it can be a concert piece with an organ or with a piano. There's lots of tone painting. I mean, he knew what all the words meant, and he really tried to match the words, the Hebrew words, the Hebrew text with his musical ideas. But there's so much in here that it's probably the best, unless you really want to follow along with the music. I don't have the translation written on top of the words, but if you just read the Hebrew while I'm singing it, read the English while I'm singing it, and hopefully it will move you. Sometimes we actually do this. I do a little bit of this in the service, and then we segue right to a different version, which is very, very accessible. So that's kind of a new style called fusion, which my husband sort of slightly invented to try to do a little bit of classical and segue right into the modern. So this is Hashkivenu. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom, v'hamidenu malkeinu l'chaim, ufros aleinu sukat shamacha, v'takneinu b'tzatcha v'fanacha, v'hosheinu. Lemor
Extremely meditative, yeah. And Hashkibenu, actually, the cantor, though she did not say it, is often one of the pieces in our liturgy that becomes a moment where the cantor sings, and we're okay with not singing along. We just want to be there and let that feeling of peace, that hope for peace, physical peace, of getting ready to wind down from the day, to infuse us as we listen to a haunting, beautiful, meditative melody. This next piece is also by Jeff Klepper of Shalom Rav fame already. A much later piece that he wrote. This is really, I think, in the last 10 or 15 years that he wrote this piece. Also, not the entire prayer, but just snippets of it, actually. Sorry?
Page 11.
Oh, sorry, page 11. And really just have the ending of the prayer that he uses, what we call a chatima in Hebrew, or really, it's like the signature, or the end of the prayer. It always repeats the main theme that you want to walk away with, having said that prayer, whether it was in Hebrew or in English, or even a creative, poetic rendering of the themes that are in that prayer. So blessed are you, eternal God, who spreads a tabernacle, a shelter, or actually a sukkah. Sukkot is the holiday of tabernacles that we celebrate in Judaism in the fall. So a sukkah of peace over us, over all God's people, and over Jerusalem. So a very informal, folky kind of melody that is supposed to be sung along with. You'll bear with my guitar playing because I don't know it. I know how to sing it, I don't know how to play it especially well, but the cantor's going to sing with me. And, which she doesn't know the song especially well. But this is a song that is really wonderful and sung, again, at summer camp and in youth group, and the kids love it. Baruch atah Adonai, Avorei Sukkot Shalom, Shalom Aleinu le'avon amo Yisrael. Baruch atah Adonai, Avorei Sukkot Shalom, Shalom Aleinu le'avon amo Yisrael. singable, very catchy, but also meditative and quite peaceful. So our final version of Hapurei Sukkot, and also actually our final song for this morning, is a perfect example of what the cantor referred to as fusion. Written by, I guess, Julie Silver and Deborah Winston. We have both English and Hebrew, so something we're actually going to teach you so you can sing along with us. And in addition, as the cantor said, this is the piece that she usually starts with, that more traditional Ashkivedu, and then comes into here. So we have a fusion of incredibly traditional and incredibly modern. This was written just a few years ago. Do you have anything you want to tell us about the composer or the?
Nothing that I know about, except that I know that Julie Silver is started out as a song leader and has composed a lot of music, and she's got some books published already with her music, and it's always very pretty and accessible.
So, well, what we'd like to do, I think, is sing it for you once, so you can get a just a taste of it, and then we'll teach you the first part, the English chorus, so that you can join us as well. So why don't we? You're gonna play the keyboard, right? Okay, good. It's not so easy for me. All right, take it away. Oh, guide my steps and help me find my way. I need your shelter now. Wrap me in your arms and guide my steps and help me make this day a song of praise to you. Wrap me in your arms and guide my steps. Now we add the Hebrew. Let's just do it by itself. Repeat it after us, right? We'll just do it. Oh, guide my steps and help me find my way. Let's try that. Oh, guide my steps and help me find my way. I need your shelter now. Wrap me in your arms and guide my steps. Let's try that. I need your shelter now. Wrap me in your arms and guide my steps. Same melody, different words. And help me make this day a song of praise to you. Wrap me in your arms and guide my steps. So that, try that. And help me make this day a song of praise to you. Wrap me in your arms and guide my steps. Let's try it all together. Oh, guide my steps and help me find my way. I need your shelter now. Wrap me in your arms and guide my steps. And help me make this day a song of praise to you. Wrap me in your arms and guide my steps. So we're going to keep singing the English. The character is going to sing the Hebrew. Oh, guide my steps and help me find my way. I need your shelter now. Wrap me in your arms and guide my steps. And help me make this day a song of praise to you. Wrap me in your arms and guide my steps. So really, the perfect example of what modern music can really do for us, which is it not only invites the congregation, no matter what their level of observance or Hebrew capability is, to join in the prayer, It also has Hebrew and has the end of the prayer to make it, just a little more traditional. And there's a moment for the cantor to sing a little more difficult, it's a little more difficult part, a little higher. But then the chorus, the English part, is incredibly accessible and in a key in a way that everyone can sing and really feel part of it. Plus it has that 1950s doo-wop underlay, which makes you feel like you're going back in time. So it's really a beautiful piece that we use during our services quite often. So we hope that in the last hour or 50 minutes or so, we've really been able to not only expose you to different kinds of Jewish music, but also help you understand what some of the beautiful key prayers of Judaism are all about, and how the different kinds of melodies and different settings for these prayers can help us to really key into those 4 or 5 M's. I have them here. Whether it's the majesty of a more cantorial traditional piece, or the meaning of not only coming together to sing a melody that you knew from when you were a kid, but also maybe the meaning of harmony or Hebrew and English coming together. Certainly meditative moments where you can just let the music enter you and use that as a basis for your own personal prayers of meditation. And memory, right? Melodies that connect you to not only the people around you, but to generations past, and to a feeling of continuity with community for hundreds and hundreds, even thousands of years.
I'm sure you would all agree that both the cantor and the rabbi helped make this day. If there are questions, I gather they're willing to answer them.
Sure.
At a service, I'm sometimes confused. Sometimes you use the traditional and sometimes you use the modern. Is it just what you feel like doing that day or what?
We plan it out. I mean, all cantors plan out the music, and before you go to a synagogue, you have to check with the rabbi, and especially the rabbi or the rabbis, and check what the congregation likes. Check with the cantor that just had the position before you, and she or he will tell you that the kind of music that the congregation likes. I mean, it used to be in the golden age of chazanut, which is cantorial music, which was probably the end of the 1950s. There were cantors that had entourages that were as famous when they walked down the street as Pavarotti. And they wore long capes. And in fact, that's what my husband saw as a little boy, and that's why he wanted to be a cantor. But they sang, and he grew up in Borough Park, where he got to listen to the famous Kusavitsky brothers, and one could sing higher than the other. And so they sang way, way, way up in the stratosphere, and it was just very majestic and very meditative, but there's no possibility that the congregation could sing along. There were some very small parts that they did, but mostly it was listening to the cantor, and that was a style for a very long time. Now there are some classical synagogues in America, Reform synagogues, where the cantor does quite a lot of the music, and people listen, or they follow along a little bit. They might close their eyes and just kind of listen or hum along to a few things. But I would say most of the synagogues in America today, the congregation does like to sing along. And so we don't do every single piece of liturgy that the congregation sings from beginning to the end, but we save just a little bit in the service for maybe the cantor to do by her or himself. There are lots of male cantors also. It started out as really just like rabbis, just a male position, and now of course there's quite a lot of females.
The other thing to consider as well is, though there are really hundreds and hundreds of compositions for each prayer, the cantor usually has a few that we rotate depending on, sometimes there's a special theme for a service that we're going to focus on, and so that melody may be more appropriate. And certainly people who don't come to services every single Friday night or Saturday morning may come and say, it's a new melody, I don't really know it. If you come on a regular basis, even, certainly every Friday night, but even on a regular basis, you'll see that there really are 3 or 4 melodies that the cantor will use for every prayer, and sort of, she gets a little tired singing the same thing every single week, so she, mixes it up a little bit. But overall, we have a relatively limited repertoire, and if we introduce a new melody, we spend time teaching it to the congregation, and we'll use it quite a bit so people can get used to it before we move on to do something else as well. Anyone else?
I'm curious about the historical role music has played both in the Christian and the Jewish tradition. Is it not so that it wasn't always appropriate to have music?
It's always been appropriate to have music. You go back to Psalms, right? King David played his harp and he danced around. So from the beginnings of the Jewish Bible, really, music was always part of the temple service in Jerusalem. So always, music is really, I can't speak to the church, but I know for the synagogue and for the temple, music is at the core of religious expression and joy.
Because I think in the Christian tradition there was a time when it was forbidden or way back. And then it just had such an interesting history, and much of it then followed on the Jewish tradition.
Right. And certainly some of the most great classical works of the, whether it's Handel or Mozart or, the classical time in musical development is all church related. It's all, religious themes.
Way back.
Right.
I thought there were some pretty severe interpretations of how one should conduct one's religious life.
Sure. Speaking on one leg, not being an expert in Christian history, but I would assume it was an aesthetic reaction to, as Christianity was coming into its own, it was an aesthetic reaction to do things differently than Judaism, to separate itself out and do something completely different. And then just like Reform Judaism, in a reaction to more traditional, or before Orthodox even existed, but more traditional Judaism went all the way over to the extreme and trying to just fit in and look like everyone else, and has come back to have more of a sense of itself over the last 250 years or so. The church as well, having separated itself and made a name for itself, incorporated things that they found beautiful and appealing, from the Jewish tradition as well. That would be my assumption, my historic assumption. But, right?
Good guess.
Good guess. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you all for having us.
Thank you.
By the way, if you come to services on Friday night at 8 o'clock, you'll actually hear some of these melodies.
And actually, this was actually the apropos week to do this. If we read in Torah or in the Hebrew Bible this week how Moses led the people of Israel from slavery to freedom, literally crossing the Red Sea and then singing what is called the Song of the Sea, which is a majestic and awesome praise of God. And if you were to look in a Torah scroll, which we don't have right here, but it, even though the printing, the script, the actual Hebrew calligraphy in the scroll is laid out differently than the rest of the text, it looks either like the sea is literally splitting. Some people say it looks like waves. It's really an awesome thing. And in honor of that, we usually have a special service that Shabbat dedicated to song, and the cantor gives a sermon in song as opposed to just a normal teaching or sermon that one of the rabbis would give. So this Friday night, 8 o'clock at Larchmont Temple, will be really a spectacular show of the scrolls of the Hebrew Bible, which we're focusing on at Larchmont Temple in our educational stuff this year, and our adult choir will be singing as well.
Definitely.
Join us.
Oh, guide my steps.
Oh,